All right, today we're going to be talking about DDR. So, what is DDR RAM? How does it work? And how to optimize your selection of your RAM for your computer. DDR stands for double data rate, which refers to a synchronized dynamic RAM access memory or SDRAM interface. The enhancement enables data transfer on both the rising and falling edge of a clock cycle, effectively doubling the transfer rate compared to traditional SDRAM. Over time, we've seen several DDR revisions, with each new generation aiming to double the transfer rate over the previous one. It's important to note that DDR operates based on specifications, allowing for seamless hardware integration into your system. When you purchase DDR5 RAM, as long as your motherboard and CPU can support, you can use any brand. However, each RAM generation corresponds to a specific slot type. For instance, DDR3 modules cannot fit in a DDR4 motherboard. They are not cross-compatible. Each new RAM generation focuses on reduction of power consumption. SDRAM synchronized with the computer clock, activated on both the rising and falling edge of the system clock. The CPU issues instructions to the memory controller, which then fetches or stores data as directed, effectively making RAM subsidiary to the main processor. The controller activates the appropriate memory cell for reading or writing. During a read operation, data is sent to the register. In a write operation, data is retrieved from elsewhere in the system for storage. The circuit involved is relatively straightforward. A flip-flop, which can store and erase data, is constructed from 4 N-type MOSFETs and 2 P-types. Flip-flops allow for quick data storage and dumping. When SDRAM loses power, the stored memory is erased and must be reloaded upon the next power-up cycle of the computer. DDR5 has built-in error correction code capabilities. Now, don't get this confused with ECC, which just happens to have the same name and the same function that is generally used on servers. Okay, so what are your considerations you need to take into account when you're selecting RAM? You need to make sure that it's compatible with both your CPU and your motherboard. I recommend you go to both the CPU as well as the motherboard's website to ensure that the RAM that you're purchasing is compatible. I know when DDR5 first came out, there were a lot of compatibility issues that happened, but those were slowly fixed over time. You were able to adopt the faster cards as drivers were updated with those motherboards. Speaking of drivers, when you first power on your new PC, there's a chance you might have to update your drivers for your RAM. So always have thumb drive handy. I know they're dying out, but they would come into handy when you're building your new PC. When you select your RAM, you also want to make sure that you match XMP with Intel and Expo with AMD. Unlike previous generations, DDR5 comes with the option of overclocking. This overclocking is compatible with that specific processor. First, load up your BIOS in your PC. You want to make sure that you turn those on if you have compatible CPUs and memory. One other suggestion I'd have is make sure that you order your RAM in pairs. So your motherboard typically comes with 4 slots, and each 2 of those slots are pairs, meaning they go together. So you'll have an A1 and an A2 slot, and you'll want to make sure that you match those memories when you buy and install those. So when you pair your RAM to your motherboard, you want to make sure that these are the same. If not, your motherboard will choose the slower of the two to operate at. So one thing that they added with RAM in the last couple of years is this annoying RGB. So those will work with your RAM slot. It runs off of the power that goes in there, so there shouldn't be any issues there as long as it fits in the slot. The last thing I have to note here is there are a lot of RAM manufacturers. But when you go through and you choose and order your RAM, make sure you buy it from a manufacturer that is reputable, has a high quality, has a lot of good reviews. Concludes my video on RAM. I appreciate you dialing in, and I hope you have a good day, and thank you for watching.